Thanks so much for joining me here at Happily in the Middle today. Today I'm going to share with you about classroom management in the middle school classroom. Don't forget to hit subscribe below because I'm going to be breaking this up into small segments because classroom management is like a giant beast. There is so much to classroom management and it is not something that you can really discuss in 5 to 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. It's really like a 5-hour conversation because there's so much about classroom management that goes into making a classroom really successful. So today, I'm just going to share with you my number one tip that I have for teachers in the middle school classroom when it comes to classroom management. Now, I have incredibly high expectations for the students in my classroom, especially when it comes to behavior. I want my classroom to run smooth. I want my students to feel confident and know exactly what they are supposed to do and what I expect from them. I think that when students are really confident and they know what the teacher wants from them, then they are less likely to misbehave in the class. Now, that's not true of everyone because yes, we all have bad days or we skip breakfast or something really tough has happened at home in the lives of a child, and that can make their behavior in the class just kind of hard to manage internally for that child. So just know that I know that there are instances where the general tips we use from classroom management don't work for everyone, and I do have tips for how to manage those students as well. But today I'm just going to focus on my number one tip that I have for teachers. Now, my number one tip that I have for teachers is that whatever procedure you teach in the classroom or whatever procedure you want your students to follow in your classroom, that you introduce it, you model it, you debrief it, and then you have your students practice that tip over and over and over and over again. And every time we come back from an extended break, we practice and we review those routines because I want it so explicit and clear to my students what I expect from them. So I'm going to give you an example of how I start my year with teaching routines. There's so much to teach. And I typically begin with how to stand outside of the classroom and wait for the teacher. Because occasionally I do have to use the restroom, and so I'm not going to hold it and get a bladder infection. Between passing period, I will run over or walk to the staff lounge and I'll use the restroom and come back. Now, occasionally this will mean that students have to wait outside of my room for a little bit of time. Additionally, I don't let students into my classroom until my previous class has left because I just don't want a barrage of 60 kids going in and out of the room at the same time. And also last year I had fifth graders in the morning and they're so tiny and so cute and so sweet, and my sixth graders were much bigger than the fifth graders, and so I was trying to separate those fifth from the sixth graders. So we had to have procedures for how to stand and wait in line outside of the classroom. Now, for my students, for whatever reason, they come up to me from elementary school and they like to be in a boy line and a girl line. I honestly don't care if they are in a line with boys and girls or one line for boys, one line for girls, whatever works. And so they like the boy-girl line, and so that's what we do, one line for girls, one line for boys. Now, I start from the very beginning in the classroom. I make a T-chart on the board or on actually a chart paper so we can come back to it. And I make a little eye for what it looks like and then an ear for what it sounds like to stand in line outside of the classroom. This is a great strategy also for English learners or students who need visual supports. Now, we discuss as a class, what does it look like and sound like to stand in an appropriate line while you're waiting to be allowed into the classroom? And so we go over all those expectations. Your feet are behind the person in front of you. You're not yelling or screaming. You're not throwing things. Your backpack's on your back. It's not on the ground. Whatever it is, you just are keeping it together. And so we go over those expectations, and then I send my class with their backpacks and all their belongings packed up outside to go get in line. Now, when they're in line, I discuss what I see that's going really well in the line, and then I share what they need to fix because I have high expectations for how they're in the line. After a line is absolutely under control, we go over the expectations for how do we enter the classroom. And so we make another T-chart and we do our eye and our ear for what it looks like and sounds like. And we discuss the expectations for coming into the classroom. They should be walking, they shouldn't be throwing things or touching other people, they shouldn't be yelling. They can greet me with a good morning, Mrs. Kyle. They can greet each other. And get down to work. Now, when I'm introducing the entering the classroom, I have the students come in and sit like a scholar. And in my class, it looks like your hands are clasped and then they're just like sitting on your desk. And this is because I haven't introduced the do now, and I don't want to do too much at once because they are sixth graders and I want them to know the expectations and routines. So after we've discussed how you enter the classroom, the expectations for that with the T-chart, we go outside in our really awesome line, and then we practice coming into the classroom. And as they are coming in, we greet each other just like it's the beginning of the day, and they go in and they sit like a scholar. Now, if I see as the students are coming in that they're not sitting like scholars or anyone starts running or doing something inappropriate, I send the whole class out to go get in a line again. I don't wait until they are seated in their desks. I just stop it right there and send them back outside to start over again. That's because I have expectations and they're going to do it right. And so we practice that, and the kids catch on really quick that it is not fun to practice the routines over and over and over. And it's better to get it right the first time than have to practice again and again and again. And so once that they have that mastered of how to enter the classroom appropriately and within a timely manner, then we add the next layer, which is how do we do the do now? Once they understand the expectations with the T-chart on how to do the do now, I send them back to the line, they walk in appropriately, and they begin the do now. Now again, we will discuss and debrief what went really well, what they can improve on, and then we go out and we practice again because I expect like 100% compliance. I expect them all to just get it. And I have really high expectations and they will do it. And what's really great about this strategy that I really learned from Doug Lemov, I think it's called 100%, which makes sense, is that come like the middle of the school year or even November, in the middle of the school year and the end of the school year, the students, they just know what to do and they do the procedure. At any time, if my students are not following the procedure, we start over. I send them outside, they stand in a line, and they come in properly. Now, I also teach Read 180, and we do rotations in Read 180 as part of the lesson. So when we are doing the rotations, those have been practiced for so much time. I don't even know how much time. I think I spent like 30 minutes when the day we introduced just like moving from group to group, and the students, they understood what to do. And so when they stopped doing the procedure correctly, we stopped in the middle of the rotation. They sat down, we pulled out the T-chart, we went over the expectations, and then we practiced and practiced and practiced. Now, the students know it is not fun to have to practice routines over, and they actually get whole class consequences when they are not following procedures. Because I know that students can use this as a time waster to just waste our class time because they think, oh, well, if we just don't do the procedures right, then we get to spend all of our time going in and out of the classroom. But every time that they are misbehaving intentionally, I will up the whole class discipline consequence, and then I will start picking out those students who are misbehaving, and they'll get their individual consequences. And students don't like that. So it kind of sounds like I'm like running a military classroom maybe to just like drill them over and over, but I want them to have the confidence that they know exactly what to do. And just know that I spend so much more time in my classroom building a strong classroom culture and community. My students know they are valued and they are wanted and they are cared about in that classroom. And so they also know, though, that they have high expectations for what I expect for their behavior to be. Now, I know that was like a lot to take in on just one classroom management tip, but that's my number one tip. Whatever you're teaching your students as far as procedures go, so passing out papers, collecting papers from students, the absent student procedure, any procedures you have for students, lining up at the door, practicing your fire drill, walking in a line from your classroom to the library, or whatever you're doing, practice that routine again and again and again and again to make sure that those expectations are explicitly clear, because then you can hold your students accountable to their choices at a later time when they're not following those procedures. Thank you so much for joining me here at Happily in the Middle. Don't forget to hit subscribe because I have more classroom management tips coming your way for the middle school classroom. Thanks. Have a great day.